Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast Under Your Bed. I am CJ, your host. Across the table from me is Taylor,
hey, everybody.
Your hostess. And today we are reviewing The Love Witch from 2016, directed by Anna Biller. Basically, a witch looks for love in all the wrong places and has deadly results for her suitors. So... whoa, this movie has got so much happening. Taylor.
Yeah, it really does. And so, to be fair, guys, we always try to do a cast and crew breakdown, but to be honest, this is like... this is an interesting one. So obviously it's a small time production. It's a lot of unknown actors. I think, is this even one where we even go over something? I guess we'll go over like or at least our protagonist, but
sure. I
don't know. So Samantha Robinson, who apparently was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and also the movie Cam, which Cam is awesome. Watch it if you haven't. She plays our complicated protagonist is the word I'll use, but I really...
rich character.
Yeah, I don't know her. I don't know Jeffrey Vincent, I think it's like Price or Pears, I can't remember. I don't know anybody, to be honest, from this cast. This is like a first for me going in and not being able to identify a single person.
Yeah, so, like Trish is even coming out of video games. It's a little obscure, but it's one of these movies that is kind of creeps up because it's kind of unassuming, where it's a small cast, a smaller budget, and just driven by a singular vision from Anna Biller. So
she did everything, guys. Literally, this woman did everything. She did the costumes. She was responsible for makeup. A huge portion of the music was her. Set design was her. Wrote it, directed it. It is just... I thought I made a mistake. Oh, and she's the editor. Geez, OP. I thought I made a mistake when I went on IMDb and I just saw her name popping up. I was like, what is happening? No, truly a one-woman show. It is incredible.
Yeah, it is really unbelievable. When you watch the movie, it's so it's just packed full of a strong editing style, strong cinematic style. The set design, the mise en scène is just loaded. It's visually stimulating at all corners. And it has this, extremely campy vibe that is really meant to deconstruct the horror genre and the role of women in horror especially, but just in media in general. So I think it's pretty mind-boggling as a filmmaker to look at how much was accomplished by a person in this movie.
Absolutely. And like you said, I think actually not having these super recognizable people actually works to its advantage. And I want to preface by saying it does not mean that any of the performances are wanting by any means. I think everybody is absolutely delivering on this vision. Like you said, it's got this very campy, very 60s specific style of acting that we don't really see anymore. So it also is just, if you're a fan, so much fun to see that done but in a modern production. It's so bizarre, but also very cool.
Yeah. So I don't know if this movie is gonna be for all audiences because it is so stylistically different. And then of course it's riddled with hypersexualization throughout.
Yeah, I think another unfortunate aspect is I feel like the feminist themes for some people are going to be a turnoff, which is an absolute detriment, I think, to that person if that's how they're living their life. It really can get confusing though at times because a lot of it on surface level feels like kind of anti-feminism, but it really is just as you mentioned, kind of a deconstruction on the male gaze. And it's so much deeper than I think the first time I went in, aesthetically, my mind was blown so hard that I kind of lost thematically some of what was going on. But especially a couple rewatches now, it's one that lends itself very well to multiple watchings. Every character is very complicated. There's a lot thematically going on. And again, visually, there's a lot to take in. And I don't say that as a negative because I was obsessed with it, but there is a lot to take in.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I was going, is this movie is intentionally jarring at like all levels. You have a cinematic style that is both modern and old from this like 60s Technicolor era. Then you have an editing style that punches you in the face. It's like very campy intentionally, something you might see like out of a Quentin Tarantino movie. And then you have this woman that's like the embodiment of like an ideal desirable woman out of the 60s or something.
The male ideal of woman, yeah.
Yeah, the male ideal of what should be the ideal woman. But then she like is using that for her own motivations and desires. So
for sure.
It is jarring at times, but incredibly fun to watch. It's definitely a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I think there's inarguable debate about where this ranks as a horror film. I'm sure we'll get into that in a second when we do Monsters Under Your Bed. But that said, this is a movie where I honestly can't tell. I think if you're going to watch it in a group, it should be people who kind of appreciate this style of filmmaking. Otherwise, honestly, I feel like this might lend itself better to a solo watch. I don't know. What's your take on the watchability of it?
I completely agree with that. I watched it alone. I don't think I know of anybody in my circle that would sit down and watch this movie with me and appreciate it and try to like dissect it the same way I am, because it is so different than the norms. So you brought it up. Maybe let's go there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start with Monsters Under Your Bed, because this is maybe a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Where are you, Taylor, and how scary it is?
I mean, it's not. I think we can agree to that. Like I said, I could see people debating even its entrance into horror as a genre, but I think it hits the right boxes for me to qualify this as a horror film. But that said, it's not scary. It's not. It's a lot more sexual than it is scary. So there's really nothing there unless you're afraid of the female form, I guess. And I think there's not going to be anything really there for you that's going to freak you out. Maybe if you're somebody who doesn't like tampons, maybe that might freak you out. But that's it. That's all we got. So I know we've debated about zeros and ones before, if you can ever give something a zero. But I have to say, like, I can't find any justification in giving this a 1, so I have to give it a 0. How about for you?
Ooh.
What is scary about it, though?
No, I agree. I was gonna give it a 4 because as a man, this is truly horrifying. No, I'm joking, y'all. But no, it's a 1 in my book.
Fair.
It's not scary. There are murders, and at times, there's some male aggression and even some female aggression at times that like could potentially be scary to some audiences. So it's pretty much being left at a 1.
I forgot about towards the end. I'll bump mine to a 1 because that actually is quite terrifying, that one aspect. So because of what you said, you reminded me there is elements that can be pretty scary. So. But a 1. So you're in the hot seat currently. So why don't you kick it off with what is your? Ooh, this is a hard one. I'm so glad you're going first. What's your overall rating on this film?
Hey, I always try to look at the rating of overall quality of the movie based on like what the goals were of the filmmaker.
Oh, sure, that's a good way to do it.
And I'm damn near interested in giving this a 4, but I think I'm gonna hold it back to a 3 because of its ability to relate to all audiences and its it is not scary. So in the genre of horror, like it's got to be a little scarier to get a 4. And then also it is like, while visually stimulating and interesting, the story is just like at times a little convoluted and you know, because there's a sort of ambiguous story arc, character arc, it can be tough to sort of like know how you feel about the movie. And so I don't know, maybe I think that's why I'm going to lean towards a 3, but it's so singularly like minded, and the vision is so strong that I'm tempted to give it a 4. So where are you at?
I'm gonna go the same with you on this one, and I think you nailed it by saying there is such a vision to this. There's such an aesthetic to this. It clearly was carried out exactly how she wanted it, and I'm sure that's why she's responsible for so many aspects of this. Is there's a vision, she wanted to do it, and she did execute it. It is very stunning. Again, with the acting, you could be like, oh, it's corny. I think they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and I think everybody fills that perfectly for the part they're given. It's just so bizarre, but so cool to see somebody bringing back this vintage. Honestly, I don't even want to say aesthetic because it's so much more than that even, but trying to find a way to modernize that and trying to like fit all these themes in. But like you said, there's a few parts where it gets a little bogged down, where things are a little murky. Some of that could be intentional. Some of that could be not intentional. And it just doesn't like quite tip over story-wise for me to be like, oh, it was so flawless, it's getting a 4. But it's again, this is not for everybody. This is, I think a lot of people are going to get turned off even in the first 5 minutes. If that's not something you can get into, I'd say dip out, because I don't think you're going to like, I don't think it's going to sway you.
Yeah.
But if
I think that's exactly the way to say it.
Yeah. If it's something you're into, though, like much like I am, and some of the references that she went off of are movies I absolutely love. So for me, this was like a total win. But again, I really want to stress, I don't think everybody's going to like, understand, or appreciate this movie.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think you're completely right. If you watch the first 5-10 minutes of this movie and you're into it, keep watching it. If you watch the first 5-10 minutes and you're like, oh, I don't understand this, I don't really like it, just, you're probably better walking away from it. Because even if there's something to be learned about, you know, feminist ideologies or the role of women in cinema, you're probably never going to get those themes because there's so much else that you're like either turned off by or just confused by or fogging those themes up. So I say give it a try, y'all. Watch it on your own when you want to explore something a little different. Outside of that, if you're into film and cinema and feminist conversations, then dive in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is, I think you nailed it. We're not saying this is a big group watch. We're not saying that this is something everybody's gonna like, but especially if this is an era of filmmaking you really love, this is gonna be some next level shit for you. So I think we have too big of a conversation to get into with the rest of it. So I think we got to wrap up this spoiler-free section right here before we give anything good away.
Absolutely. All right, y'all, we'll see you in a little bit after a quick break for a drink and deep dive critique.
Oh, a good drink.
Welcome to the podcast Under Your Bed. There'll be drinks, critique, and perhaps a few murders. You're all invited, but once the podcast has begun, there's no way out. The ghosts are waiting, so won't you join me for the podcast Under Your Bed?
I think Oscar
Who had
worthy.
the best campy? Yeah, agreed. We win. Best campy 60s death, y'all tell us.
I mean, I had a whole
hopefully
backstory of
you
getting
understood.
poisoned, so I think just for that alone, I win.
Yeah. I guess I was daggered to death. I don't know.
There you go.
Oh boy. All right, y'all.
Drinks,
We need a drink to get through this one.
Yes.
What do we got, Taylor?
Yes, I wish I had scrolled down a second ago. All right, here we go. So this was another very fortunate incident where I was able to find somebody who had watched this movie and designed a cocktail specifically for it. So huge thank you to Spooky Little Halloween for making
Thank
this
you.
very, very lovely cocktail. So this is the Love Witch cocktail. So pretty easy ingredients for this one too. It's essentially just vodka, some rosemary for a garnish, and then you make your own berry juice, or you could, I'm sure you could buy this as well, which is just raspberries, blackberries, blueberries. I actually was really surprised at how easy it was, and also how good my kitchen smelled when I was making the berry juice. It was, it's really good. It's really good. It's a very simple drink. And I like that on this site, we'll link the site too, because she gives you a lot of cool variations you can do. The first one I tried, I actually used a rosemary simple syrup. Highly recommend. It just punches it up a little bit. I usually half what people say because I don't like it too sweet. But it's really good. And I also added just a dash of club soda to give it a little zhuzh, and it is fucking delicious. I mean, how are you enjoying the Love Witch cocktail?
I love it. I always recommend a little herb to give it that like scent. The rosemary just is a great little addition. I would love to try the rosemary simple syrup you did. So dash that in there. And completely agree. While I'm not drinking it myself, I think a splash of the club soda to give it a little fizz would be awesome. But delicious drink and very fun to make. It's so simple. A great way to like kind of show off to friends or family if you're trying to do some little cocktail party or something. And it's a good daytime, summertime drink or something. You can pull this out in lots of occasions.
I think you can just drink that berry juice straight as well, I think, because it's just juice
absolutely.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. I figured it's always kind of fun to like make the same type of drink for my kids without the alcohol, of course. So this is one that they would love. So
you don't put a splash in, get them to bed early.
look, sometimes when mama's not looking, no, of course not.
Well, CJ,
all right, I'm in the hot seat.
Oh, yeah, it's you today. I put in 2 weeks in a row. People had to listen to me. It is your turn.
Which I think is fair for this movie, that the man has to be uncomfortable and do the dirty work. So
yes.
All right, the plot summary review for y'all to catch up or recall. We open with a voiceover from our protagonist, Elaine, explaining that after the death of her ex-husband, Jerry, she sought out witchcraft and is now moving to California for a fresh start and a new man. When Elaine arrives, she meets Trish, her new home's interior designer. Trish takes her to tea, and it's clear the two have very different views. Trish believes in equality and living for oneself, and Elaine states men should be given their fantasies and whatever they desire. Trish's husband, Richard, appears. And Elaine immediately fucks him. Elaine returns home and performs a love spell. Potion number 9. The next day, Elaine meets a professor named Wayne, and the two head off to his cabin, where Elaine gives him a hallucinogenic drink and cooks him dinner. After the two sex, Wayne becomes extremely emotional and attached to Elaine, which disgusts her. Later, the next day, Elaine discovers that Wayne is dead. She buries his body and leaves behind a witch bottle. When Elaine returns home, she sets her eyes on Richard. She invites him to dinner while Trish is out of town and again seduces him through a love drink. Similar to Wayne, though, Richard becomes obsessed with Elaine, and afterwards, she breaks things off with him, and he becomes grief-stricken and kills himself. During all this, Sergeant Griff Meadows investigates Wayne's disappearance, eventually discovering his body and the bottle, leading him to a witch shop selling similar bottles created by Elaine. When Griff speaks to Elaine, she denies knowing Wayne and manages to convince him of her innocence, leading to a date the very next day.
I feel like that's very
The two go riding and happen upon... Yeah, why not? It's just a little date. It's innocent enough with a suspected victim. Sorry, her suspect, I mean. The two go riding and happen upon a Renaissance fair, being held by Elaine's coven and partake in a mock wedding. Griff ignores his partner's theory that Elaine is the killer, but is unable to do so after Trish finds and presents evidence tying Elaine to the deaths of Jerry, Wayne, and Richard. Griff confronts Elaine, saying no love will be enough for her and that everything she does is an act. Elaine admits that after being pushed to the side and having love withheld from her, she elected to take her power back and makes no apologies for getting what she needs from men.
Get it, girl.
Get girl. The conversation is overheard by bar patrons, causing a brawl and near assault of Elaine. The two are able to escape, though, and return to her home. Elaine gives Richard a drink, but he tosses it to the ground. Then this rejection and the reality of what he did overwhelm Elaine. She stabs him to death and fantasizes that he, in fact, proposed to her.
The Love Witch, everybody. The Love Witch.
The Love Witch, 2016. Not that old, but feels like it's out of the 60s / early...
Oh, absolutely.
2000s. It's a trip and a half.
Yes,
Where do
what a
we
great way to
begin
phrase
it.
it. Oh my God, I don't even know. This is like much like the movie for me. I have to say, I think this is I have to say, the first time I watched this, I went in completely blind. I didn't really know anything other than the trailer, and I knew there was an aesthetic, obviously, but I really didn't know anything else. So the first time, I'm not gonna lie, visually, I was kind of so flabbergasted by what I was seeing and getting that campy acting specific from the 60s and all of it, that I kind of walked out of my first viewing really unsure of everything.
In a daze?
Yeah, really.
Like you were under a love potion, maybe?
Just like that. Just hallucinogenic. I'm seeing the... Technicolors everywhere.
The kaleidoscope eyes.
Yeah, kaleidoscope eyes. But this is, I think we may have touched on it, but this is a movie that I think actually does require multiple viewings to fully take in everything, because there's just a lot, which is, again, where do you start with a movie that has so much going on?
Well, let's go story. Sure. I know it's like the first thing that you see is the visual style, but the point of all of it is to drive story. So
yes.
First of all, let's maybe talk about the story's arc, how we feel about the resolution, and then maybe we can transition to like more theme and you know, this character that Elaine is portraying.
And they're so integrated too. So I'm sure there's gonna be some crossover, guys. It's really hard. The themes are everywhere in this movie that it's really hard to even separate them out. But so in terms of a story, I'd say overall, like, we're talking relatively like a pretty simple, straightforward story. You've got your A storyline of the love witch trying to find the right mate, and then you kind of get the B story like halfway through of the detective who's gonna like figure out who did it and then falls in love with her. And it is very like campy and very 60s, and it is like story-wise, which I think is a wise decision, is actually I think the story itself is relatively straightforward. I say it's so complicated, it's weird to call that straightforward.
It's interesting. It just occurred to me that it almost like is a role reversal of the A storyline and the B storyline, where typically from like a movie out of the 60s that is some sort of like detective driven film with some sort of like femme fatale character, you're going to have a storyline of who is the murderer, and then a B storyline of a love interest, right?
Oh,
and
you're
in this
so
case,
right.
it's exactly the opposite, where it's a storyline of the love interest trying to find love, and then the B story of trying to solve the murder and who did it. So the film, that's not the only thing that's flipped on its head in this film, right?
No.
It is at every turn. Everything. You know, I mean, here we are. We can't untangle any of it, I guess. So you have like the aesthetics of a film that comes out of the 60s, like this Technicolor film look. Mm-hmm. But then, as like you pointed out immediately, like, what the fuck? Look at this modern car and like modern cell phones. But then there's also like what else? There's so many. Her character as like being the ideal, in from the male perspective, the like ideal woman, but also like using that to her advantage and to seek her ends and her desires, and like a very strong feminist perspective. So
yeah, and it's funny, she vocalizes she vocalizes like the opposite throughout about 90% of the film. She's vocalizing like, you got to give a man what he wants. He wants sex, you got to do it. He has a fantasy, you need to fulfill that. She tells Trish, like, you need to give your husband X, Y, and Z. But the thing I think is so interesting is, so Wayne, which is the first man we see her trying to seduce and sleep with, it is all on her terms. He wants to hook up in the car, and she's like, no, not here. They go inside, and he's like, hey, baby. And she's like, nope, we're eating dinner. And then she's the one who says, yes, we can have sex now. Like, she's actually calling.
She's not
all
pursued.
The shots.
She's doing the pursuing.
100%. So
it's very interesting. And you know, I guess I want to hear your perspective on the ending and like kind of her character arc of, you know, what sort of like realization does she come to, if any, and how are we meant to feel as an audience at the end?
Oh, that's such a loaded question. I guess where I would start is, if anybody has seen this movie, it was very much inspired by this character, so I'm just curious. But Jean Tierney's character in Leave Her to Heaven, who is a very also love-driven, obsessive type who can't ever really get what she fully thinks she needs, or like, even when people are giving her everything they have, it's never enough. And this character is very similar. What I think we get a little more backstory on with this one is how toxic her relationships with her ex-husband and her father were, which I assume are very big like factors into why she can't really ever satisfy this feeling, is not really knowing what a healthy dynamic and relationship look like. I mean, she's got this ex who's telling her, well, you need to be cleaning more. Dinner was late today. You're looking kind of fat. Your hair's not very good. Her dad who's like, you're an idiot. You're this, you're that. And so you've got these huge male figures that totally skew what potential she may have even had to have like a healthy, loving dynamic. So I think Griff is right in the sense that he says nothing you ever do, no one is ever going to fulfill what you think you need, which I think is really interesting. But I also think she is very driven, and it's a pure motivation in a way that she genuinely does want love, but she'll never get there. So she's such a complicated character, and in terms of resolution, it's such a hard one because she doesn't, and this is what's probably smart about the movie, she doesn't fully fit any stereotype. Like, she's not fully a femme fatale. She doesn't fully embrace feminist values, even though she gives that speech at the end. A lot of what she does perpetuates that male gaze and fantasy, which is problematic to you know, equality, obviously. So I didn't really answer that because it's really hard to come up with a solid, like, she's this and she gets from A to Z at the end. Like, it doesn't really work that way for this character, which is probably why she's so smart. I mean, I guess, what's your view on the character, and where do you think she falls into that kind of arc, I guess.
Well, I think it summed it up right. It's like the idea is, from Anna Biller is that this character is complicated and you can't pin her down into some sort of like stereotype or trope where, typically this type of character in a horror film, like the final girl, can be narrowed down to some like simplistic ideals that are not real to life and diminish women in cinema. So I think that's pretty interesting. And this is sort of jumping topics here, but it is sort of occurring to me that while you were talking about this, that there's sort of this like cross blending of eras, right? Like, and I'm starting to think that maybe it's because it's Anna Biller's like perspective that why the fuck haven't these problems been addressed and changed as much as they should? Like, why are women still facing these problems? So it has this like 40s Technicolor aesthetic. It has like mise en scene and wardrobe and hair and makeup at times that's coming out of like the 60s. And then you have like modern vehicles, modern phones. So to me, it's like probably trying to transcend, time and the setting to make you think of like, kind of what I raised, like why this woman is always out of place no matter the era, and it's because she is more than the preconceived ideas as an audience you have of what this woman's supposed to be.
For sure, and she's very influenced by... very influenced by the ideologies that exist of, like you said, the conceptual ideal woman. She's still very much influenced by that.
Yeah. That's the irony of it, right? She's like this powerful feminist out of the modern era, but it goes about that, finds her power by embodying this archetype of the like ideal woman from the 40s or something, or from any era, I suppose. So
yeah,
it's definitely an interesting critique, and you're just kind of smacked in the face with this like style that's like kind of trying to shove you in that direction over and over again. So it's really, I don't even know if I'd say a pleasure to watch. It's just, it's enjoying. It's a fun experiance, but it is an intense experience at times.
Oh, it is.
So dramatically
and it
different.
like clearly there's and I'm not gonna I read a lot of articles trying to fully dissect and understand this myself. It's very nuanced, so I don't want to take credit and be like, I came up with this on my first watch, because I didn't. But there is this play on the male gaze and this play on making you feel kind of creepy and pervy watching a lot of this, which is really fun because she's not fetishized, in my opinion. Yes, she's super fucking gorgeous. She's beautiful. So obviously we're all drawn to that, but I think it's critiquing that's where our eyes are going and what we're focusing on, and that we are missing some of the themes because we are so fixated on the beauty of it, and it kind of calls you out on that in a way, which is really, it makes you kind of feel shitty, to a degree, even as a female viewer.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like by the end of the movie, like you're kind of lent to have so much desire for this character that you're almost become the mob that attacks her and nearly rapes her at the end in a way. Like that's the audience, that's the male gaze, that's the patriarch that is attacking her on camera, as the critique of like what audiences are in a way doing to actresses, to women in society,
women in film especially.
So I mean, it is Anna Biller is so unforgiving in her approach to this, you know, even to the extent of like watching Elaine like pee into a jar on camera and pull out a tampon in front of you, you know, like just has zero restraint in what she's willing to show and offer as what a woman should be and should not be.
Yeah, I mean, she straight up buries a body like looking foxy. It's pretty wild, like you said. Yeah. And even that scene of her peeing, you're like, she still looks hot. Like it's just kind of funny that she looks stunning throughout the entire thing. And I did like that they threw in the line about tampons. I was like, good for them for being like, most dudes haven't even seen this. You've got to be fucking kidding me. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah. I was like,
don't be a bitch.
Don't be a bitch about it.
Yeah, I didn't like calling someone else a pussy later. Like,
oh my God,
it's pretty relentless.
Yes, it truly is. But then it's all packaged with this just stunning wardrobe and set design that it's just, like you said, very harsh critiquing, packaged so beautifully.
You know, how do we make sense of the Renaissance scenes? Because after I kind of had that like aha moment of the like, this is supposed to transcend like eras of like female oppression. Like maybe that's where it's coming from. It was like, look, this has been happening since the fucking Renaissance days. Like, I don't know, how does that fit in? Why are we going to these Renaissance scenes?
Well, I feel like the witch theme is more of the commentary on, you know, how women have been villainized and sexualized at the same time. And if you're powerful or taking any of that in control, then that's a bad thing and something that society doesn't appreciate. So obviously there's a lot of factoring in there. Honestly, I can't reckon exactly with the decision of including the Renaissance scene. It's her group, it's her coven, and they say they're like, this is can we just really quick? That's a very eclectic group of people because not only like, okay, so they're going to burlesque shows, teaching lessons about sex, magic, and dancing. Then they like to have parties, naked dancing by the moon with a lot of drinking and eating. So dig it, not judging. And they are also at the same time Renaissance reenactors. Like, what is the? How do you even like say, hey,
you might as well throw some
group?
LARPing in there. Why not?
It's just like that scene too. I think. To be honest, if you had any question of what it was trying to do, like in terms of the acting, if you ever were like, I don't know, are they just bad actors? I think that scene sold me entirely being like, oh no, there is a vibe and everybody is doing it right. Because it is that just the fake laughing, the audacity of the lyrics in the song. Like there is such that scene took the camp.
Like stiff dialogue and very contrived dialogue where they're just like talking across tables to each other in very like formulaic matters. The style was strong, you know, if at times like you're just, it's at times jarring because you're just not used to it. I loved it.
It just was.
I want to
so
talk about
ridiculous.
the lighting a bit because it was so strong stylistically that way, where they went back to that like classic Hollywood style of lighting, where, you know, portraying this this lead female actress on camera with like the glamour shots of like one giant light kind of fixed above the camera, so you have like that strong under the nose shadow to like make the nose look tiny and petite, and then the strong jaw lines come out, and then a lot of those like classic shots you also see where like the eyes are sort of highlighted.
Thank God you mentioned that. Yes, 100%.
You know, and again, I think that's like pointing the audience towards like this like role reversal of the male gaze to the female gaze and the female desire and what she wants versus what the men want at times is how I interpreted that.
Oh, for sure.
And I found this like juxtaposition between the like 40s Technicolor look with like a clean digital image was very contrasting, where I was like, where's the grain? Where's the like kind of jittery camera? So, you know, again, that sort of like cross blending of eras was like all the way through the camera and the lighting, and the acting and everything.
Oh, the set design too. You touched on it with the Renaissance fairs of so fucking specific and very much fits that. Like if I saw that plus a grainier quality to the camera in a 60s film, it would fit right in. I wouldn't even question it. But particular her house that she rents, I think well,
what a set.
What that in the tea room. Sorry, we have to talk about those two sets because those are wild.
So when I first saw it, I was like, it sort of jumped out to me as like that like classic era filmmaking again, where like, you know, like coming off of like Citizen Kane or something, where it's just packed with mise en scene. It's just like so much to look at. It's overwhelming. So what like popped out to you? You know, why are we seeing these? You know, all this stuff.
Man, I think that color clash is so specific to the 60s, and there is such an aesthetic in the apartment. And even actually, obviously, we just keep referencing the 60s, but that tea room scene, weirdly enough, I don't know why, made me think of the movie Repulsion, and then I saw that was actually listed as an influence on the film. I don't know if it was that scene in particular. It could be thematically some of what's going on as well. Though that character is afraid of sex versus this person who's embracing sex in a big way. But it has this like really ethereal, dreamlike quality in the tea room scene, especially. Maybe it's because it's all that pastel color. I just wish I could like put up there's no way to articulate it through my words as much as what you're actually looking at, because again, there's just so much going on when you're looking at it.
It was interesting, and I mean, I didn't like pause to look, but I'm pretty sure it was all women, right?
Yes,
everyone sitting at a table was a woman.
Yeah,
which is almost like a call to the like men's parlors of the day, where it was a gentleman's club and only men are allowed. So here's like the opposite, the antithesis of that, where it's all women, and this man comes in and suddenly is the object of attention and the female gaze and being sexualized. So just another way where the like expectations are flipped onto their head. So a lot of fun.
Let's talk about some of the men, since we're on the topic of Richard right now. It was funny because before we start recording,
they're all very relatable and understanding in their motive, and I thought they're stand-up dudes.
Oh yeah, they're all. I mean, I would love to match any of those dudes on Tinder. They seem really fucking cool. Now this was the funny part. Is before recording, I'm like, well, I don't know, that Wayne's not so bad. And I was like, hey, wait a second. He said this horrible thing, and then I realized I'm like, oh god, they're all ridiculous in their own ways. I mean, so you get Wayne. And he seems fine. He's a professor. He clearly likes having sex. I'm not shaming him for that. But where I was like, this guy is such an asshole, is when he said something along the lines of, every woman I'm attracted to isn't smart enough. And the smart enough women are all like homely. And you're like, oh, cool take, bro. Like, that's awesome. And then you get Richard, who's just this. He's a nerd. I'm sorry. You look at that guy and you're like, he's a nerd. And he's got this John Wayne Clint Eastwood fantasy that he'll never, ever live up to that ideal, yet is perpetuating that the woman should live up to that kind of fantasy, which is just audacious in itself. And even Griff, who is the more solid, I'd say, out of the guys we've dealt with. But even he has this whole monologue during the Renaissance Fair where she's like, oh, the more you get to love somebody, you love their flaws. And it's like, it's great. And you embrace them. And he goes polar opposite on that, saying, you've ruined the mystery and she's not attractive anymore. And who can even really care anymore? And I like that they all kind of are these different guys, yet all douchebags in the same way.
Right. So you sort of get the like three main like douchebag qualities that exist and like reasons why guys believe women aren't good enough, right?
Yes.
And so again, it's like where in a lot of horror films, the women are reduced to archetypes. Like in this movie, the men are reduced to these archetypes and kind of more stereotypical characters.
Yeah, totally.
But they're a lot of fun because of their archetypes that they're fulfilling.
Well, and they're also not so douchey that you can't get on board in any capacity. I think that's where a lot of shittier horror movies fail, is that if you just make someone an outright asshole, we're not invested in any capacity at all. And it is actually kind of fun to see Wayne go from this like, I bring a lot of girls up here, whatever, to like crying and being kind of pathetic. Yeah. It's actually like a very fun turn to see that guy reduced to like a very emotional male, and to have her reject that emotion as well is very interesting.
Right, which again, like, is the role reversal where in most films it'd be the female like breaking down emotionally,
too clingy, too attached.
And she's the one turned off by it. I mean, maybe because it's such like a societal counter. I don't know what I'm trying to say, like antithesis to society's expectations is why this movie is like jarring and difficult to watch, because you have to change your perspective in order to become invested in the story and in the movie.
Yeah, for sure. I want to give her like a lot of credit. She very much had a vision, and it's been fun to watch some interviews with her where, you know, critics are saying, oh, clearly she's putting this emphasis on this film and to have this character be this way. And I love it. She's a badass bitch. She'll just come out and go, yeah, that's not what I was doing there. She just shut it down.
I need to watch some of these.
I've seen some of these interviews. It's just very cool that she's like, actually, it's a lot more nuanced than that. But thank you so much for just assuming that I copied this director or that I was trying to do this here. And it's primarily coming from men. So it's just like an extra level on there.
That's fantastic. Please share that online.
Yes,
we would all love to see. Additional thoughts.
One area I think is kind of interesting is that actually there's like two kind of interesting characters. So his name is either Gahan or Gahan. I think it's Gahan based on the way she said it in the movie, but I honestly can't remember. But I think he's an interesting character because I think he represents, at least to me, and I'm curious what your opinion is, CJ, like a guy who's trying to be like a feminist, but also completely missing the fucking mark to me, especially given the fact that he is clearly the coven leader, and part of this ritual to become a witch involves, it looks like, it's not ever shown, but it's definitely indicated that he has sex with her, and I don't even know if you could call it sex because it has a very rapey vibe to it. But that he perpetuates this male aggression, and when he's trying to give a lesson to the twins about, like, Barbara's like, there's a duality in partnership and blah, 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 and he's like, yeah, so put on your makeup, put on your high heels, and I'm like, this guy is that really problematic male to me, of like trying to be an ally, but totally feeding into the problem. But I don't know, maybe this is a movie where I don't know, you know.
It makes sense. Like, there's the other archetype, right? Like the type that like sort of puts on the facade of, you know, being an ally, but still has their own desires and wants. You know, and then it's also pretty typical of like any cult leader, right?
Yes,
like,
you're
at
right.
the end of the day, like they're in that position because they enjoy some sort of power and control, and have that capability of taking advantage of situations. So,
oh, that is spot on.
It fits.
That is spot on. Yeah, he is very much your cult leader. You're right. Under this guise of like, I hate saying it because it still disappoints me. But it's very much this
or something.
What's this very like Joss Whedon type where you're like, oh, he's like, look at him, he's such a feminist, look at everything he's doing, and then he's a total fucking aggressor, and you're like, oh, it's so disappointing. It hurts my heart still. I like don't even want to think that it happened, but it did. So we gotta deal with that. But anyways, the other dynamic I'm interested in discussing is the dynamics between Elaine and Trish and that female to female dynamic. And I'm actually curious what your perspective on that was.
Interesting. I haven't given it too much thought. Like one point I noticed in the movie was this sort of reversal again, where I thought there was a bit of a wardrobe swap where Elaine in the beginning is wearing a lot of red, and then she sort of becomes this femme fatale character and is wearing black at moments of like power or where she brings death. And then all of a sudden in the next scene, Trish was the one wearing black when her husband died, and so I was trying to understand like what the motivation was there or the connection. So I'd be curious your thoughts, between the relationship, what you saw, what jumped out to you as a woman.
It's hard because it's one of those things where I feel like there's a lot to interpret, and not necessarily saying that our interpretation is correct on it. I mean, I do think it somewhat plays into pitting women against each other in the sense that, she goes after her husband, and there is another kind of role reversal, like you said, where Trish is kind of your more standard feminist archetype of, hey, I have a fucking life and I'm not just gonna revolve it around a man. But then when she goes to drop off a ring, she finds all of Elaine's, I'd say almost like battle armor in a way. She finds her wig and her makeup and she puts it all on.
There you go.
And clearly when she does do that, there is this like little bit of confidence and
Sure.
Totally. So it is kind of interesting how those things that are very male specific in a way, like you said, Elaine is able to take it and use it as a way to empower herself instead. So there's like that kind of jumped the ship on where I initially started that conversation, but it just kind of went into there.
I did catch that in that hair makeup scene where she starts like kind of embracing Elaine's character and what she sort of believes in.
The feminine, look or whatever.
Right. Sort of her, she's like an antithesis to Elaine, right? They're like opposites in a way, and she's sort of exploring that side. And then of course she becomes like revolted by the discovery, like, oh, this is like to the end that she's taking it is killing these men, and one of them being her husband. But that ritual I felt was interesting of donning the hair and the makeup, and because every woman, has pretty much done that ritual of getting ready to fulfill society's expectations of what they should look like in certain situations. And then also there's like the ritualistic parallels to casting a spell or creating a potion, where it's very like procedural and kind of brings in those ties of you're doing this in a way to put men under a spell or something and like control them in a sense. So it's kind of interesting I'd be curious if that resonates with you, if you felt that at all. Is that how you feel when you put on makeup?
No, let me be honest, as somebody who rarely puts on makeup, if ever. And if I do, it's really like, oh God, I still have acne somehow at the age of 30 something. So I'm going to have to cover that up, is really, really all I do. Obviously, as you can tell, it's not a real good painted face. It should probably be
we don't
better,
appreciate it if you embrace some typical feminine ideals here that we have. Come on, Taylor.
I think the cool thing about Trish doing that though is how empowered she is on her own, and she's not out on the street. She's not looking for a man. She's not whatever. Just like, I think, and I just can't help but make this connection because I saw this horrifying interview one time with that terrible Jordan Peterson who said the only reason women wear makeup is to seduce men, and I was just disgusted hearing that. I was like, buddy, I'm like, you look at my face and you're gonna tell me I'm out there like trying to snatch up a man while I'm at work. I'm like, no, I just had a bad pimple I needed to cover up. That was it. It's like, so I think it's cool that when she does that and she does get that empowerment. Yes, it is very much like battle armor for Elaine. I'm very much seducing men, but I think that Trish gets a different kind of empowerment from that, and it seems to be, it's solo. It's not out in the world and whatever. She's feeling sexy and confident on her own, and I kind of dig that. Obviously, it goes pretty awry like a minute later when she sees the shrine, and then they have an epic cat fight, which I did love that 60s type of slap fight. You know, I kind of dug it.
That's pretty classic.
But I just had to point that out because I think we've made it seem like that's the only reason women wear makeup or whatever, but that like I think women are really taking that back as an art form, really, to be honest. I think what people can do with makeup these days is insane, and I wish if I could draw at all, might be able to do that. I can't do any of that shit, but like it's such a form of expression in who you are and whatever that I think it just is so often reduced to like, is to get a man. And I think, again, it kind of plays on that in this movie. It's just a part of the larger theme of we've reduced all these things to just make it this very simple thing, but it's not. It's so much more complicated than that, and women are really taking a lot of that back. I went on a tirade.
Snap, 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 yeah. To change topics here, would be curious how you feel about this in the context of a horror film, like, and its place in horror.
I mean, I think, like, again, we can really simplify things and just be like, it's not a slasher, it doesn't count. But I think horror is becoming so many different things, which is so fucking cool to see. I feel like especially within the last 10 years, we've just seen like a horror renaissance and being like, it can be very thriller intensive. It can be very thematic intensive. Yeah, okay, we don't have a bunch of blood and guts. However, she murders several people, and she also stabs someone at the end. So my question is, what more do you people want to qualify it as horror? But I can see the debate of saying it's not very scary and there isn't a ton of blood and guts, but like you get some boobs in there, people. What more do you want from a horror movie? Okay, you get blood and tits. What do you want from us? Okay, no, I'm kidding. But like, what's your take? Because I can honestly see where people are like, does this count? But I feel like it does. Yeah,
I mean, you got murder, you got a witch. So I think you do categorize it as horror. However, it actually might be like more of like a drama / tragedy.
Oh yeah.
With like the horror like subcontext there, right? Because I think it's a very smart idea to use the witch as this like analogy, for an ostracized woman that like it has like is it like creates fear in the male perspective and the patriarchy, and that needs to be burned at the stake. Is a pretty damn clever way of approaching this conversation. And so, yeah, that's for sure a horror film for me. And I like using monsters as ways to explore societal critiques. Like look at Frankenstein. There's like your typical example of this, right? This is like in a way exploring another conversation through another monster character.
Or yeah, even Ari Aster, you're exploring family dynamics in Hereditary. You're exploring breakups through a horror lens in Midsommar. It's
right.
I just love how much more complicated horror has gotten, and I think it just lends itself to examine, especially societal expectations, so well, and gives it such a better nuanced lens than these straight dramas do, to be honest. I think you get a lot more and are able to explore and do more through horror because you do have that ability to suspend belief, and it really works well to explore harder topics.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's a movie that's in a lot of ways like self-exploratory. Like, how does this make me feel? How should I act differently? It's like it's calling upon some self-reflection, and in further viewings, I think some things that I want to pay more attention to that I would like to hear other further comments on from other people is I know color is a huge conversation in this movie that I feel like I need like another one or two viewings to like focus solely on that to create any sort of like thesis around how color is used and the role of color. That's something I want to untangle a little bit. And then also like the role of nudity. Similar in ways of like movies like, what's the classic country film? Whereas like laughter was like a big theme. And I know that's like sort of a theme that comes up a lot in movies where laughter plays like, what's the role of laughter? What's the like critique it has on society in certain situations where in this movie, it seems like similarly nudity is explored that way of like, in like, why is she nude in some scenes, and is what's sort of subverted by her nudity, and what is that attempting to say about the male gaze or about feminism, or power. I think there's a lot to explore in that because there is so much of it in the film. And it's a film that is very intentional with its, conversation on women in society.
I will say, actually, most of the nudity is actually done in art. Anywhere there's really exposure is primarily done through the pictures, because even when she strips and even when she's having sex, her hair is so long that you only once in a while even get a glimpse of tit in it. Like, it's actually pretty tastefully done, I would say, in a way that I would hope everyone, again, we just kind of talked about this when we covered X, but in a way that I assume, because this is a female director, I assume this was a comfortable set, a comfortable setting to do some of these things. But really, there's we don't actually, shockingly for being the Love Witch, we don't actually get too gratuitous of nudity or sex, even though it really is throughout the film. The most graphic stuff is done by oil painting compared to the movie.
That's fair. I think there's enough of it though, and at such like different times in the movie where it feels like there's something that's trying to be told through the use of nudity. So
no, it's
just a conversation that
you'd have to, like, same as me even. I watched this a couple times just to get my head around everything, and I still feel like I'm missing out on a lot. And I think we've done our best to cover the larger topics, but like you said, they're still, and I think this is why this movie's so good though. Like, look at what a rich conversation just a couple of viewings gives you. If you had more time, and if you maybe were, there's some topics I don't think I'm super well versed in that I would have to explore myself to actually have like an articulate conversation about it. But like you said, the use of color, again, that male gaze we kind of touched on, but I think that can be a much more rich and deep conversation. But I don't have enough viewing experience of this film to like fully delve into it. I think we've just kind of touched on it, but I think that tells you this is a film that if you dug it the first time, or even if you left mildly confused the second time or the first time, it really deserves a second, third, fourth, whatever viewing to really explore all of that and to take it all in.
You know, I completely agree with that. If you were able to watch this movie in its entirety, it definitely warrants a second, third, fourth viewing. There's no doubt in my mind. And you know what? To go back to that laughing conversation, I think The Wild Bunch is the movie I was thinking of. Where, like the role of film, the role of laughter in the films is sort of like a critique on like just the lack of compassion, the indifference, I guess is the word I'm looking for, right? And sort of and power. Like, I think power is an important part of the role that laughter plays in The Wild Bunch. So, you know, to me, it also was like ringing some bells with nudity and scenes of like moments of power or moments of actual connection or maybe just control, you know, like so I'd like to explore that a little bit.
Yeah, she rides that line pretty hard. If you're, you know, with her. Again, she's just a very interesting character where you have to wonder, I think in a way, in a very perverse way, but I feel like her intentions to an extent are like pretty pure. I really do genuinely think she is trying to find this thing that's going to satisfy what she deems as love. But as we get to the end, we realize, you know, much again, like Gene Tierney's character, it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be what she needs or what she wants. And to her and others' detriments, she's never going to itch that scratch in a way. But there's so much to this movie. It really is really fucking good. And it's just that aesthetic to even be ballsy enough to say, I'm going to bring the 60s and elements of the 40s and some elements of the 70s even into a modern film and find a way to update these themes and play with them and flip them on their head. It's just so ballsy that I'm like, it's only been a couple of years, so I can't judge her too harshly, but I'm like, girl, where's another movie? We need another movie from you. Like, I want to see what you're going to do, you know?
Well, in your defense, it's been 7 years now, so come on, let's get going here.
I'm sure
give
COVID
us some more. I completely agree.
Have impacted that.
Yeah, that's fair. COVID gave everyone a hit, but yeah, I definitely agree. Anna Biller is someone I want to keep an eye on. Very curious what she has to say through film outside of just the role of women in this movie. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on her. Everybody, let us know your thoughts, other conversations that you think should be explored in this film that we didn't cover, because they go on and on.
We couldn't, guys. Come on. We're neither of us are enrolled in feminist studies or 60s film studies. So like, this is going to be the extent of what we have to offer in terms of the conversation.
So teach us something. And I hope you all walked away with a little extra something today too.
Yeah. And
Taylor, what's next in store here?
Yeah, here we go. Okay. So we are bringing a classic. I personally will not call it a zombie film, but I think CJ is going to argue with me on that one.
No, I get it. I'm not going to argue it, but come on. It should be watched in the context of a zombie film.
If that gave you any big clue as to what we are covering, we are going to cover Danny Boyle's classic 28 Days Later. It was a movie I was like obsessed with. I haven't watched it in a couple years just because, God, there's been too many good movies to watch. So I am stoked to go back and revisit this film. But we always say if there is something we haven't covered that you guys want to cover, if you've got good ideas for drinks, especially zombie-related drinks, because last time we copped out with a pint of lager, so we gotta step up our game for the next one. Or like Suja said, if there's topics
I don't know,
of
might go
conversation,
with another English beer. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, we'd really be cheating on that one. If there's topics of conversation you'd like us to explore further, or something we didn't cover, we'd love to hear it. So you can send us a message at podunderyourbed@gmail.com. That is our handle as well, podunderyourbed, for all of our social media handles. So hit us up, let us know what you want us to cover. I am so excited for 20 Days Later, though. Can't wait.